Today I want to talk about the Basemap Gallery widget. Now, Basemap Gallery widget is really cool because you can just add it to your application and you're able to switch out the base maps you want to use for your app between a whole, there's a whole group of base maps you can switch between: imagery, streets, topo, and so on, right? So it's pretty straightforward, but I do want to point out how you can take advantage of some things that are part of the API and part of the Basemap Gallery to do some cool stuff, right? So if we look at the properties here, the source for the Basemap Gallery is going to be, you can have your own local source, or it's by default going to be a portal basemap source. And what it's going to do is it's going to use the default portal instance that's set in Ezra config portal URL. So if we look at a sample of the Basemap Gallery, so what I've done here is I've created a map, and I'm just doing streets, for example, and I'll talk about how you can play with this in a second. Got my view, and then my Basemap Gallery, right? And I'm just going to go ahead and add it to my map. That's going to let me go ahead and switch out to like imagery. There's the streets I was using. However, this is vector streets. Notice I wasn't using the vector streets in my instance over here. I was using regular streets. And then we've got cool stuff like the community base map is really nice. I like using this one. Really good looking map. Then we have newspaper and so on, right? So you have all these different base maps you can use as part of your API. All right, so there's been a lot of base maps have been added to the default base maps in ArcGIS.com over time. So we have some really cool looking base maps you can use depending on the data you're going to have. And maybe you have an application where the user is going to do some sort of exploratory stuff and maybe change the way some of the colors look. You might want to change. They might want to change the base map out to kind of highlight some stuff, right? To make the data pop a bit more. So one thing you can do is you can actually point the source for the Basemap Gallery to a portal. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to point it to the JavaScript team's portal URL. URL is equal to that. Oops. So I don't think that their base maps are defined any differently. However, one thing you might want to do is, say for example, there's pretty much all the same base maps. But let's say that if I try and create a map here, I only want to use the default base map assigned to my organization. That doesn't really work by creating a web map, because you have to have a web map created. You need to know where the base map is coming from. What is the default base map for your org? So one thing you can do is you can go ahead and create. I'm going to move this stuff out of the way in a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and create an instance of my portal. All right, so I have a new portal. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use portal.load. It's a promise. So it's going to return .then. And then what I want to do there is I can check some stuff. So I'm going to say that my base map that I want to use for my map is going to be equal to if the portal property for use, vector base maps is true, then the base map is going to be equal to, can't type here. Then the base map is going to be equal to the portal default vector, I can't spell, base map, or it's going to be equal to the portal default. It's not vector, so it's just regular base map. There we go. I think use vector base maps as a default now for most orgs, but there could be a reason that you don't want the default base map to be a vector base map, so you might just have a regular default base map. All right, so okay. So now I've actually got a base map set. So let's go ahead and let me copy this here. into here. And now what I can do is I can go ahead and say that my base map format map is going to use whatever the default for the portal is set up as. All right, so here we go. So the default base map that's used for the API team is going to be the topo vector base map, which is going to be the topo imagery underneath the vector tiles for the streets and stuff like that. So you get this really cool looking map. So now when I run this app, I'm making sure that I'm using the default base map from my portal organization, which is really cool. And also, if my org had different base maps defined for it, other than what the default ArcGIS.com org had, these would be all my base maps in here. So you might have your own custom base maps and stuff, and they would show up in the Basemap Gallery widget by default. There you go. That's how you can use the portal base maps and the Basemap Gallery widget, and also take advantage of using that default base map from the portal inside your app to create your applications.